It's now my great pleasure to welcome back to the stage Andrew and Lachlan, who you heard from earlier, for our panel discussion. And they'll be joined by BSP Financial Group Chief Executive Officer Mark Robinson and Tisa Bank's CEO Sunil Pakharel. Please give them all a round of applause. Welcome. Have a seat wherever you like. Thank you very much. Lovely to see you. Thank you. Now, Mark, I'm going to start with you because we haven't heard from you yet. How would you characterise the resilience of PNG's banking sector?
Well, I'd probably look at it and start off by saying that in a traditional sense, it's an incredibly resilient banking sector. I've been fortunate to work in a number of countries during my career, and PNG really does stand out. You've had banks, as Lachlan mentioned, the two international banks operating here have been operating for over 100 years in PNG. We've been operating for almost 70 years, and obviously over that period there's been there's been ups and downs, as there have been in every country, but each of these banks have very experienced management teams. They have robust strategies. If you look at it in a traditional sense too, they're quite conservatively run in terms of liquidity, their balance sheet and capitalization. In our case, we're a listed company on the ASX. We'd be about an ASX 100 company with a market cap of over 3 billion Australian dollars. So these are very robust institutions. And now, of course, looking forward, it's very exciting for the banking sector to have two new banks already, and it sounds like there's going to be another one next week. I don't know if there's going to be one the next week after that. But the reality of it is, at BSP, we welcome that. If it's good for PNG, it's good for BSP. We welcome competition. It'll keep us on our toes. We have over 2 million customers across PNG. We have branches in 81 locations. 50 of those locations, there is no other bank operating there. So we're very familiar with being a pioneer in terms of providing banking services. We consider it an honor and a privilege to be going into markets for the first time and offering people the opportunity to have banking services nearby. We're also obviously investing in digital channels so that people can do as much of their banking as possible from home. Now, the thing I would just point out, though, as you look forward, we've got new banks, new models, changing technology. It'll require the continued effort of our regulator to modernize, to make sure we capture that resilience. It will also require the transparency, an increased transparency with our potential retail customers. That responsible lending, I think, is going to be more and more important, and that's why getting things done like passing the Consumer Financial Protection Act, which has been pending for quite some time, will be extremely important. The other thing that'll go right to resilience will also be the FATF outcome on the mutual evaluation review, whether or not PNG goes on the grey list. That's a very, very important aspect of resilience if you look over the next several years. So I was pleased to hear the Treasurer talk about the effort that's going to be made in every respect to try and make sure that PNG doesn't go on the grey list. But in conclusion, it's a resilient sector that the country should be very proud of, and it's evolving very quickly. So I certainly agree with Lachlan. It's a very interesting time to be a banker, probably anywhere in the world, but especially in PNG.
Yes, changing really quickly, isn't it?
It is.
Speaking of which, Sunil, with TISA recently launching its commercial banking operations, how do you see the bank shaping the future of banking in PNG?
Okay. In fact, before how we start TISA Bank, Michael Questions already mentioned something about it. I think it's for the larger audience, they need to know how we started the banking. And banking is very capital-intensive industries, right? A lot of capital that's required. But very interestingly, what happened in 2008, an old teacher retiring, and she said, okay, I'm retiring, what I'm going to do with the money, because I'm not allowed to keep my money with Saving Loan Society in 2008. And the only options then was what she's going to do with her money. And what will happen, whether the children can have accounts with SNLs. Then the provision was not there to have that accounts. And these questions were asked by this old lady in 2008 to the board members during the AGMs. And the board had no answer. And consequently, what happened in 2010, the board had decided, Teacher Saving Loan Society board had decided to open a bank. Because if you look at fundamentally, these seats of the banking for the teacher bank starts for that purpose. Otherwise, if you ask me if new bank has to be set up now, we're going to do a lot of deliberations on investments, how we're going to get our returns. But it was not that premises from where we decided to open the banks, right? So for us, the banking is entirely different because we're looking at the banking because the perspective has to change. So we are looking at more to do with the financial inclusions. Because PNG is a country in the world, perhaps, where you have unbanked population as high as 80%. And that's really alarming rate. And then the country need more banks, category B, because you have a huge unbanked population means you need more bank in the countries. Definitely, whatever BSP, Westpac, NZ, and Kina for that matter, they're serving, they're doing fantastic, no question about it. But you need more banks to reach this unbanked and unserved customer. So our missions is very categorically, we're very clear on that. We're going to target that particular segments of the market. And that's going to open up a new era of banking in the banking sector because the aim should be at least can we go up to 30%. That should be the aim on the financial inclusion space. So hopefully this is where the TISA Bank is going to add more values. And we're going to do more into SMEs and MSME sector. And because we always strongly believe in that's the backbone for any economy to grow and thrive, especially if you're looking at the emerging market. This is where we are going to put our efforts in coming days. It doesn't mean that we're going to stop doing corporate lending and other lendings. Definitely would like to get into that as well. But I know that space is crowded and the market is very limited. So we have got ample space to play, and that's going to change. That's going to bring a change, and definitely technology will be one of the enabler that's going to make a lot of difference for the new banks like TISA or any other bank that's going to get the license too.
Thank you, Sunil. Andrew, you touched on the World Bank project. How would that help Papua New Guinea?
Thank you for the question, Tracy. And I just feel very humble sitting next to actual bankers where I'm in my office in Canberra worrying about the high-level international financial architecture, but never actually have to foreclose a loan or all the difficult things that bankers have to do in real life. So the World Bank project, it's not the silver bullet. What we have here and what I tried to outline is some of the challenges that we're all facing are part of global financial trends and products of systemic changes that have been happening for over a decade. So the World Bank project allows PNG to be part of the Pacific community and actually lead the Pacific community, and because what we're dealing with is multifaceted, and I go back to the grey listing question. It won't solve the potential grey listing, but it won't solve that issue. But we all know we need to work together as a community to address some of those issues, and having community of like-minded practice and PNG being able to compare its experiences, and also it's sort of one of the most valuable things we feel we do as Australia is to learn and exchange views with our PNG counterparts in the banking regulation and oversight sector. So just building those relationships across the Pacific, we think would be incredibly valuable. We think that PNG would learn from it, and we think that PNG would benefit from it. And that's even before we get to the second stage, which will be the aggregation of payments. But I would just emphasise that it's just that sharing of learning when you're dealing with issues like a mutual evaluation report, I think would be incredibly valuable. And also something with PNG, with the largest, most sophisticated economy in the region, would have a lot to give. Thank you.
Lachlan, fraud is a huge issue in banking globally. What does that look like from a PNG perspective?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Tracy. I think fraud it's a global issue, and that means PNG being global as part of it. I mean, you'd say fraud is as international as the most international bank. And what I mean by that is PNG by default has a ticket to the game, and fraudsters typically will go after the most weakest link. So the important piece here is that PNG ensures that they're not the weakest link. And I think Sunil touched on it, where he said banking is a capital-intensive business. This is one area in terms of prevention where the banks need to invest a lot of capital into funding fraud prevention activity. But I think another piece, if you think about PNG, there's two things that's happening. One is the level of financial education is low, and we've got a very ambitious and plan underway to deploy digital banking. So those two together is a bit of a risk vector. So the key here, I feel, is that to battle it, one is investment in infrastructure and systems from the bank's perspective, but equally, if not more important, is education. And that education is not just our own banking staff, it's our customers, but it's also the general community. And I think all of the banks have a financial literacy type training programs, and ANZ has just recently rolled out a scams component in our financial literacy training to help manage that. But this is where, in my view, there is no competition when it comes to fraud. The banks, it's the same enemy that we're all dealing with, and collaboration across the banks is something that we do, but I think we could do a little bit more of when it comes to fraud and sharing intel. And this is where I feel the international banks can facilitate and assist, because across both within ANZ and possibly Westpac, we've got some very deep expertise in some of these areas. So we can, and we have in the past, provided some level of expertise to the table. And I think this is something that we could probably do more of.
We are talking about challenges here. So, Mark, what are the challenges that you've faced running PNG's largest commercial bank?
None.
Just briefly,
It's
how long
easy.
have you got?
It's easy. Look, I think running a bank is you're running a business, and so some of the challenges that we face are no different than the challenges that our corporate clients face. In our case, it's probably exacerbated a little bit in that we're probably the most present institution across the country, barring perhaps one or two. So that dispersed network is quite costly to run in terms of connectivity, moving people around. The other one that's costly is we move a lot of cash around. We're one of the largest users of private aircraft to get cash into all across the country. Still in PNG, 80% of the transactions are still conducted with cash. We obviously are working hard, I'm sure, along with the other banks, to get more things online, but meanwhile, for many people, they're just much more comfortable working with cash. So we have just signed the largest contract with the NCR, an ATM provider, to purchase over 500 ATMs that we'll install in PNG and some in our Pacific network, and many of them will be both cash deposit as well as cash withdrawal. So I'd say really there's the operating expense, operating the network is a challenge. Things like power obviously are very important. The other one, which everybody's talking about, of course, is getting it right in terms of financial inclusion. Really making sure we've got over 2 million retail customers. We have 40,000 SME customers, and we have about 3,000 of our larger corporates. And day in, day out, making sure that we're serving them well. We're very sensitive to the fact, everybody here from PNG knows that people spend too much time waiting in line. We need to fix that. We're chipping away at it, and we expect there'll be progress that'll be quite visible in the coming quarters. So it's very exciting. There's a lot to do, and of course the pure business challenges are always offset by the great sense of satisfaction when we are able to help individuals and companies and communities can contribute towards their prosperity.
Well put, the greatest joys come from the greatest challenges sometimes. Sunil, we're coming to the end of our time together. What's the one message you'd like to leave everyone here with today?
The message is very loud and clear from a country like PNG, because credit to GDP ratio is very, very low in the country, which is around 15 to 16%, which is the lowest in the regions. In most of the emerging economies, this is what I've seen. So all the banks need to work together, complement each other. I think this is the area because we have a dream and the numbers saying, okay, we're going to grow our GDP significantly. And these are the areas because we need to increase our credit to GDP ratio to at least 30%. If from 15%, if you can do it, and everything is very much achievable in the days to come. So I think all the banks need to work together for two reasons. One, to grow our SME portfolio, and on the financial inclusion side. So we need to complement each other. There's no competition at all in the market, honestly. This is one of the best country in the world where there is no competition in the banking sector, as of now, if you ask me. This is what I've seen.
I love that. Stronger together. Would you please put your hands together for our stellar panel?